The first time my mother tried to take my business, she did it in front of my employees. She walked into my shop like she owned the place, clapped her hands once to get everyone's attention, and said, "Good news. He's transferring the business to his brother. Because he's the oldest." My foreman froze with a clipboard in his hand. One of my newer guys looked at me like he'd misheard. And my older brother, Daniel, stood behind her with his arms crossed, wearing that smug half-smile he always wore when we were kids, and Mom decided he was right before anyone spoke. I was in the middle of a client call. A real client. A real contract. Real money. I put the phone on mute and stared. "Mom," I said slowly, "what are you doing here?" She didn't lower her voice. She didn't look embarrassed. She looked proud. "I'm protecting you," she announced. "You don't know anything about business. You've been lucky. Lucky. I built this company with 18-hour days, burned weekends, missed birthdays, and a stress ulcer that sent me to urgent care last year. But sure, luck." Daniel stepped forward like he was about to accept an award. "It's time," he said. I unmuted the client long enough to say, "I'm so sorry. Give me 5 minutes," then hung up completely. The silence after the call ended was sharp. Every employee was watching. I could feel my face heating up, but I kept my voice level. "Everyone," I said, looking at my staff, "go back to work. This is family nonsense." My mother bristled. "Excuse me." "Go," I repeated, calmer but firmer. My foreman hesitated, then started herding people away with that look employees get when they realize their boss's private life is bleeding into payroll. Within seconds, it was just us in the front office. Me, my mother, my father, who had slipped in quietly behind them like a man entering a room he had already lost, and Daniel, my older brother, the heir, according to Mom's religion. "What are you talking about?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Transferring what business?" Daniel leaned against the doorframe like this was his office. "The business," he said, like I was slow. "Mine. You'll keep working, obviously, but I'll run it." I stared at him. "You'll run it," I repeated. "Yes." "With what experience?" He scoffed. "I'm older." I blinked. That was it. That was his resume. "Birth order." My mother nodded vigorously, like he'd just explained an MBA. "Daniel understands leadership," she said. "He always has. You're good with tasks, not decisions." I actually laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "Tasks," I echoed. "You think running a business is tasks?" My mother's face tightened. "Don't get arrogant." "Arrogant," I said. "You walked into my workplace and announced I'm giving away my company." "It's not giving away," she corrected immediately. "It's keeping it in the family." "It is in the family," I said. "It's mine." Daniel's smile flattened. "It shouldn't be," he said. There it was. Not jealousy. Entitlement. The belief that my success was a mistake that needed correction. My father finally spoke, voice quiet. "Son, let's just talk about it calmly." I looked at him. "Did you know they were doing this?" He didn't answer. His silence answered. My mother stepped closer, wagging a finger at me like I was 12. "You've been playing entrepreneur," she said, "and it's gone to your head. You need someone responsible to manage the big picture." "I manage it," I said. She waved her hand dismissively. "You think you do." Daniel pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket. My stomach dropped. He held it out like a peace offering. "I already printed something," he said. "We can make it official." Mom found a template online. A template. Online. For transferring ownership of a company. I stared at the paper like it was contaminated. "You brought paperwork," I said slowly. "Because I knew you'd be stubborn," Mom snapped. "Daniel is trying to help you." "Help me?" "By taking everything I built." I pushed the paper back toward him without touching it. "No." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Don't be dramatic. I'm not signing anything." My mother's voice rose. "You will," she said, absolute. "Because you owe this family. You wouldn't be anywhere without us." There it was. The debt ledger again. "You didn't build this," I said, still calm. "You didn't put in the work. You didn't take the risk. You didn't miss sleep. You didn't cover payroll when a client paid late." She scoffed. "We raised you. And that entitles you to my company?" "Yes," she snapped. Daniel nodded like it was obvious. "I'm the oldest," he said. "It's natural. Natural. Like gravity. Like I should just step aside." I felt something shift in my chest. Not rage. Clarity. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You think you should own my business because you were born first?" "Yes," Daniel said. "And Mom, You agree. Of course, she said. You're not a leader. You're a worker. Daniel is a leader. I stared at her. You used to say I was smart. You are, she said quickly. Smart enough to build it. Not smart enough to run it. That was the knife. The backhanded compliment meant to shrink me. Okay, I said. Daniel's face brightened slightly like he thought I was giving in. Okay, he repeated. Okay. I said again and reached for my office phone. My mother's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? I dialed my lawyer. Daniel's smile disappeared. Are you serious? He asked. Yes, I said, listening to the ring. Because you just tried to stage a hostile takeover in my own office. My mother's face went red. Don't use those words. They're accurate. The lawyer's assistant answered. This is Jameson and Lee. Hi, I said, still watching my mother and brother like they were strangers. I need to speak to Mark. It's urgent. Someone is trying to force a transfer of my business ownership. My mother lunged forward, hand outstretched. Hang up. I stepped back. No. Daniel's voice sharpened. You're going to call lawyers on your own family? I'm going to protect my livelihood. My father finally moved, palms out. Everyone calmed down. But my mother wasn't calming down. She was escalating. Because for the first time, she realized this wasn't a private guilt conversation in a living room. This was a workplace. With stakes. With witnesses. With consequences. And she had just walked in and lit a match. My lawyer didn't answer. Of course he didn't. It was mid-morning on a Thursday. People have lives. But the voicemail was enough. I spoke clearly. Mark, it's me. My brother just showed up at my office with paperwork trying to transfer ownership of the company. I need to review protective steps immediately. I hung up. The room felt smaller. Daniel stared at me like I had betrayed him. You really think this is that serious? He asked. You brought transfer papers, I replied. You made it serious. My mother stepped closer again, lowering her voice like she was negotiating with a child. You're overreacting. Daniel is offering to help you scale. You don't understand growth. I almost smiled at that. I scaled from 0, I said. You don't get more literal than that. Daniel scoffed. Barely, he said. You have what? A few employees? A decent month? Don't act like you built Amazon. There it was. Minimize the success. Reduce it until it's small enough to steal without guilt. You don't even know our margins, I said. I don't need to, he shot back. I know business. With what? I asked. He bristled. I've managed teams. At the call center? I asked calmly. For 6 months. My mother gasped like I'd sworn in church. Don't mock him. I'm asking for qualifications. Daniel's face flushed. You've always thought you were better. No, I said. I've always done more. The air cracked. My father stepped between us again. Let's not compare. But comparison was the whole point. Daniel had been the leader our entire childhood. Not because he was competent. Because he was first. First to walk. First to talk. First to get keys to the car. First to get forgiven. When he crashed Dad's car at 17, it was a mistake. When I dented the mailbox at 19, it was reckless. Birth order had always been a crown in this house. And now they wanted to crown him with my company. My mother shifted tactics. She turned away from me and walked toward the production floor. Let's see what you've been doing, she said loudly. No, I said sharply. She ignored me. She walked past the glass wall into the workspace where my team was trying very hard to pretend they weren't listening. Who's in charge here? She asked. Every head slowly turned toward me. I walked in after her. I am, I said. Daniel followed, hands in his pockets like he was surveying a property he was about to acquire. My mother addressed my employees directly. You all know Daniel is going to be taking over soon, right? We want this to grow properly. My foreman looked at me with wide eyes. That's not happening, I said, voice firm. Daniel laughed. It is. He just needs time to accept it. This is inappropriate, I said. You don't speak to my staff. My mother spun toward me. They deserve stability. They have it. Not under you, she snapped. There it was again. You are not enough. I walked back into the office and held the door open. Out. Daniel didn't move. You're embarrassing yourself, he said. No, I replied. You're trespassing. The word landed heavier than anything else I'd said. Trespassing. My father finally seemed to realize how ugly this was getting. Let's step outside, he urged. My mother's face twisted. So you're throwing us out now? Yes. In front of your employees? Yes. Daniel stepped forward, chest puffed. You wouldn't have this place without us. I stared at him. What did you contribute? He opened his mouth, closed it, then shifted. You don't think Mom's connections helped? What connections? I asked. To what? Church bake sales. My mother's mouth dropped open. How dare you? How dare you walk in here and try to take my work? I shot back. Daniel's tone changed then. It lost some swagger. You don't get it, he said, quieter. I need this. There it was. The crack. Need what? I asked. A position, he said. Authority. Something real. My stomach tightened. This wasn't about competence. It was about identity. What happened? I asked. Silence. My father looked away. My mother's lips pressed thin. What happened? I repeated. Daniel's jaw flexed. They're restructuring, he muttered. My department might be cut. There it was. Not a confirmed firing. A possibility. And they were already building a lifeboat out of my company. You don't even know if you're losing your job? I said. It's likely, he snapped. And I'm not going to start over at the bottom. So you start at the top here? I asked. I'm the oldest, he said again, like that answered everything. My mother nodded aggressively. He deserves security. And I don't. I asked. You have it, she shot back. Because I built it. That was the part she refused to say. You're not taking it, I said calmly. Daniel's face hardened. You're selfish. No, I said. I'm protective. My mother threw her hands in the air. Unbelievable. After everything we sacrificed. There it is again, I said. The debt myth. You think raising me was a loan. It was work, she shouted. And this is mine. Daniel suddenly stepped closer to my desk. Give me access to the accounts, he said. I'll show you what real strategy looks like. I laughed, genuinely this time. You don't know our vendor contracts. I can figure it out. You don't know payroll. I'll learn. You don't know compliance. I'll hire someone. With what authority? I asked. He faltered, then said it. Because I'll be the owner. My mother clapped once sharply. Yes. The certainty in her voice was chilling. Not hope. Not negotiation. Expectation. You really believe I'm just going to sign this over? I said. Yes, she replied. That's what stunned me most. Not the audacity. The confidence. Because my whole life, when she pushed hard enough, I folded. When she cried loud enough, I apologized. When Daniel puffed up big enough, I shrank. This was the first time I didn't. You need to leave, I said quietly. Daniel shook his head. You're making a mistake. No, I replied. You are. My phone buzzed. Mark. My lawyer. I answered. Put it on speaker, Daniel demanded. No. I stepped aside and explained everything in clipped, precise terms. When I said the words attempted forced transfer, I saw something shift in my mother's face. Legal language has a way of puncturing fantasy. I ended the call after confirming immediate protective steps. Reaffirm operating agreement. Notify bank of potential interference. Formal trespass notice if needed. When I hung up, I looked at them. You're done here. My mother's face was pale now. You're really choosing this over family. No, I said. I'm choosing competence over hierarchy. Daniel's eyes went cold. This isn't over. And for the first time, I believed him. Daniel didn't wait long to prove this wasn't over. 3 days later, one of my biggest clients called me directly. Hey, he said carefully. Quick question. Is there a management change happening? My stomach dropped. No, I said immediately. Why? There was a pause. I got an email, he said, from your brother, introducing himself as incoming operations director. For a second, I couldn't breathe. What email? I asked. He forwarded it while we were on the call. There it was. Daniel's name. A signature he'd clearly cobbled together. And a line that made my vision blur. As the eldest member of the founding family, I'll be overseeing strategic direction moving forward. Founding family. I built this alone in a rented garage with borrowed tools. There was no founding family. There was me. Please disregard that, I said calmly into the phone. There is no change. He has no authority. I figured, the client said carefully. But you might want to handle that. Handle that. I hung up and felt something in my chest snap into focus. This wasn't emotional manipulation anymore. This was interference. This was sabotage. I called Daniel. He answered on the first ring. What? He said, like he'd been expecting me. You emailed my clients. I introduced myself. You misrepresented yourself. I'm positioning the business. It's not your business. Yet, he said. That word. Yet. Did Mom tell you to do that? I asked. He laughed. She supports me. Of course she did. Delete the email, I said. No. Daniel. You're emotional, he said coolly. You're going to tank this company because you don't understand leadership. I understand liability, I replied. You just exposed yourself to it. He hung up. An hour later, my mother showed up again. Not alone. With my aunt. And my cousin. Reinforcements. She walked into my shop during peak hours like she was hosting a town hall. We need to settle this, she announced. My employees froze again. I walked out of my office slowly. Leave, I said. No, she said louder. You're being irrational. We're family. You are trespassing. Don't you dare threaten me with police. Then leave. She ignored me and turned toward my staff. Has he told you he's planning to step down? She asked. My foreman looked like she wanted to disappear. No, she said carefully. Because he isn't. Daniel stepped forward this time. You're hurting the business, he said to me. You're unstable. Clients need confidence. I felt something very clear settle in me. You emailed a client pretending to be management, I said evenly. That's interference. I was helping. You were undermining. My mother clapped her hands loudly to interrupt. Enough with these accusations. We're here to finalize this. She pulled the same printed document out again. This time she slapped it down on my reception desk in front of 2 customers who had just walked in. My humiliation had an audience now. Sign it, she demanded. I looked at the customers. At my staff. At Daniel standing there like he was waiting for me to bend. And something in me decided this would not happen quietly. Everyone, I said loudly. This is a family dispute. There is no ownership change. My mother's voice cut through mine. He doesn't know what he's doing. My foreman stepped forward. Ma'am, she said firmly. This is a workplace. Daniel tried to grab the paper back, but I got there first. I held it up. Let's read this, I said. My mother's face went white. Don't you dare. Oh, I dare. I read it out loud. A template downloaded from some free legal site. It listed Daniel as primary managing director, effective immediately. It claimed unanimous family agreement. It had a forged signature line with my name typed underneath. Typed, not signed. The customers were staring now. One of them whispered, Is this real? No, I said clearly. It's an attempted takeover. Daniel lunged toward me. Give that back. I stepped away. You forged authority, I said loudly. You contacted my clients under false pretenses. You're now interfering with operations. My mother shrieked. How dare you speak to your brother like that? How dare you stage this in my business? I replied. My phone was already in my hand. I dialed the non-emergency police line. Daniel froze. You wouldn't, he said. I would. You'd call the cops on your own mother? Yes. The room went silent. Because for the first time in our lives, I wasn't playing along. The dispatcher answered. I explained calmly. I have individuals refusing to leave my commercial property and attempting to interfere with operations. My mother's face drained of color. Hang up, she hissed. No. Daniel looked genuinely shocked now. You're serious? I've been serious since day one. My aunt tried to grab my arm. Don't do this. You're already doing it, I said. When I ended the call, I looked at my staff. Everyone back to work. Then I looked at my mother. You are not welcome here. Her eyes filled with tears instantly. You're humiliating me. No, I said. You did that yourself. Daniel's voice cracked slightly. You're destroying the family. No, I replied calmly. You tried to destroy my livelihood. My father finally stepped forward, having hovered near the door the entire time. This has gone too far, he said quietly. It went too far when you printed fake ownership documents, I replied. Sirens were faint in the distance. My mother grabbed Daniel's arm. Let's go, she hissed. Daniel looked at me like he'd never seen me before. You think you won, he said. No, I said. I protected what's mine. They left seconds before the police arrived. I gave a brief statement anyway. Trespass warning documented. Interference documented. Attempted misrepresentation documented. When the officers left, the building felt different. Not shaken. Defined. My foreman walked into my office slowly. You okay? She asked. I nodded. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? For not folding. She smiled faintly. You built this. Don't let anyone pretend otherwise. And in that moment, the hierarchy flipped. Not because I screamed. Not because I dominated. But because I refused to shrink. The official trespass warning did more damage than yelling ever could. Because it made everything real. There was paperwork now, a case number, documentation that Daniel and my mother had attempted to interfere with a registered business. That wasn't family drama. That was a record. 2 days later, my lawyer filed a formal cease and desist letter. One for Daniel, one for my mother. The wording was surgical. Any further misrepresentation, interference with clients, or attempt to present themselves as acting on behalf of the company would result in legal action. I didn't send it out of spite. I sent it because they'd crossed from emotional manipulation into operational sabotage. And once someone is willing to risk your livelihood to win a power struggle, you don't negotiate. You fortify. The fallout was immediate. Extended family exploded. Group chats lit up. How could you involve police? You embarrassed your mother. Daniel was only trying to help. No one mentioned the forged document. No one mentioned the client interference. Just tone. Just loyalty. Just birth order mythology. I didn't argue. I forwarded the cease and desist letter to anyone who contacted me and said, "This is not a family discussion. It's a legal boundary." The messages slowed. Because legal boundaries don't care about feelings. My father called once more. He sounded tired. "She's devastated," he said. "She should be," I replied. "That's your mother. And that's my business." Silence. "She believes you're throwing away your relationship over pride." "I'm protecting my work over entitlement." He exhaled. "You've changed." "Yes." He didn't argue this time. He just said, "Daniel won't recover from this humiliation." That sentence told me everything. It was never about management. It was about status. He couldn't stand that the younger brother had something solid, something visible, something he didn't control. And my mother couldn't stand that her hierarchy failed. In her world, oldest leads, mother decides, younger obeys. I broke the structure, and that's what they couldn't forgive. The final confrontation didn't happen at my business. It happened at a family birthday dinner a month later. I almost didn't go, but I wanted to show something. Not defiance. Stability. When I walked in, conversation stopped. Daniel didn't look at me. My mother did. Immediately. Her eyes were red, but not from crying. From anger. "You think you're untouchable now," she said the second I sat down. "I think I'm protected," I replied. She leaned across the table. "You involved the police. You refused to leave. You made your brother look insane. He forged documents." She slammed her hand down. "You're dramatic." "I'm factual." The table went quiet. Extended family watched like it was theater. Daniel finally looked up. "You could have just given me a leadership role," he said. "I offered you a position," I replied. "With probation. With salary. Not ownership. I'm not your employee. You're not my owner." That landed harder than I expected. My mother's face twisted. "You're cruel." "No," I said. "I'm clear." She looked around the table like she was searching for support. "For generations," she said loudly, "the oldest has carried the family name." "This isn't medieval Europe," I replied calmly. "It's a registered LLC." A few cousins actually laughed. That was the moment. The crack in the performance. My mother realized she no longer controlled the narrative. She stood up abruptly. "If you continue down this path," she said, voice shaking, "don't expect us at any future milestones." I looked at her evenly. Business milestones don't require parental approval. That silence was different. Not tense. Final. She sat back down slowly. Not defeated, but diminished. Because she had tried public humiliation. And it hadn't worked. Months passed. The business grew. We signed 2 new contracts. I hired another supervisor. My lawyer tightened our operating agreement. My accountant restricted access permissions across every system. Security cameras were upgraded. I stopped answering unknown numbers. Daniel tried once more to contact a vendor. The cease and desist reminder shut that down quickly. Eventually, they stopped. Not because they understood, because they realized I wouldn't yield. I used to think strength meant keeping peace, absorbing tension, making myself smaller so the room stayed stable. Now I understand something different. Peace built on surrender isn't peace. It's compliance. My mother told me I knew nothing about business. But I know this. Leadership isn't birth order. Authority isn't inherited. And ownership isn't something you surrender because someone louder demands it. They said, "We built you." Maybe they did. But I built this. And I'm not transferring it to anyone. Just because they were born first.